Today on the show, I'm going to be reviewing a book called Marvel, The Untold Story. If you're a person that likes to read comics and you're interested in where the industry's come from and where it's going to, then this show is for you. So I just want to elaborate on my earlier statement. If you're a person that's just like passively into comic books, meaning that you kind of watch my videos about character histories, you watch the movies and the cartoons, but you don't actually read comics, then probably this book isn't going to be for you. However, if you actually read comic books and you follow a series monthly and you always want to know what happens next, then you should pay attention because this book is important. So everyone that's into comic books sooner or later realizes that the history of Marvel according to Stan Lee in comparison to the history of Marvel according to artists don't really go together. And this book really clarifies that. Now this book really gives credit to artists that didn't really previously get it, which is a really important thing, but as such, Stan Lee does come across as the worst personality in the world in this book. Now I do want to clarify that this book isn't a novel-length attack on Stan Lee, but it does point out that he isn't this grandfather of comics that only lives and breathes comics that the media makes him out to be. In fact, at one point during the book, it actually points out that Stan wanted to dump the whole comic thing at one point and only focus on doing movies. Now I'm going to read you a quote from the book that's actually in the opening pages, and it will really give you an idea of what to expect in this book. Fate intervened, or so the story went, in the form of a golf game between Martin Goodman and Jack Leibowitz, head of rival publisher DC Comics. Leibowitz reportedly told Goodman that DC had thrown together some of its most popular characters, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, into a single supergroup titled the Justice League of America. Goodman marched into the office with a mandate for Stan Lee: steal this idea and create a team of superheroes. But Lee had been through attempted superhero revivals before. He went home to his wife and announced that he was finally going to quit. She talked him out of it. Just do it the way you want to, she insisted. Work your ideas into the comic book. What are they going to do? Fire you? It took a few days of jotting down a million notes, Lee would remember years later, crossing them out and jotting down a million more until I finally came up with 4 characters I thought would work well together as a team. That was how Stan Lee recalled the genesis of the Fantastic Four and how he related it over and over again through the following decades, in his admittedly jaunty manner. Jack Kirby, who'd launched to stardom in the 1940s when he co-created the iconic Captain America for Goodman, would later tell it differently. Marvel was on its arse, literally, and when I came around they were practically hauling out the furniture, Kirby said. They were beginning to move and Stan Lee was sitting there crying. I told him to hold everything and I pledged that I would give them the kind of books that would boost their sales and clean them up in business. Right from there we see the whole Jack Kirby, Stan Lee situation. It's a somewhat famous situation, not gonna lie, and it's interesting to see it written down like this and how it's such a core component to Marvel's history. One part that does highlight that Stan Lee isn't a bad person is how when the Comics Code of Authority actually came about, Lee thought it was a silly situation and he would actually fight to get artists' rates a lot higher. For all of you that don't know, comic book artists really don't get paid all that much. And it's actually thanks to Stan Lee that their pay actually got raised in the first place, which is a really good thing. One thing this book really does make apparent is that comic books are going in a different direction compared to when they first started. Comic books these days are like this hub of hidden information that's there for people that search it out. It's not that hard to find, but you do have to search. In that sense, comic books are almost becoming this era of the world's version of the occult, because if you didn't know, the occult just means knowledge of the hidden, and in its rawest essence, it has nothing to do with magic. That direction of the comic book industry excites me to no end, but in terms of the book, it really does show how corruption is dangerous and how it's not a good thing to play with, and how a company that allowed itself to get corrupt is still recovering from that even to this day. So once again I say, who is this book for? Well, if you're new to comic books and you have no idea how the industry works, then pick it up. If you've been into comic books for a while and you know the stories around how the industry works and the history of the industry don't quite add up, then once again, pick this book up. I do just want to say that this book isn't a casual read, but it's definitely not a heavy read. It sits in that area between Hunger Games and Game of Thrones, where you won't finish it in just a few hours, but it's not a life investment. I provided an Amazon link down below, so you can actually buy this book for yourself if it sounds interesting to you.
It's super effective!
Okay guys, that is it for today. If you have read this book, please let me know what you think in the comments down below. And also don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more reviews. And also don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. My name is Faust, this has been a review, and it is super effective. Side note before I go, I'm so sorry that today's video is so short. One of my SD cards actually broke, so I've had to order in a new one, but it does mean short videos until that new one arrives, which should be Wednesday, so we should be back to our normal programming length as of Wednesday.